This is it. Benny over here reporting live. I'm reporting with Trevor Noah. I couldn't even tell who's who.
I know, it's just like you blend into the background.
This is nice. You got the memo, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, like, thank you
We're
very
like
much.
twins.
Grab from the swag bag, it's been brilliant.
This is it.
Yeah, so I saw the reveal trailer, and I didn't know you were a gamer until that moment, which got me excited. What are kind of your go-to games?
Man, I have so many go-to games. If I don't have much time, I'll play a game of FIFA. I'll jump in. If I've got like an hour to spare, I'll go for a story in Battlefield, or I'll play something multiplayer-wise. It really depends what pops up, you know? But those are like my go-to. Like, if you're looking for me, search for the FIFA, and that's where I'll be.
And today I want to get in on why some people have taken issue with the Battlefield 5 trailer. And to do so, we're going to have to take a look at the approach that EA and DICE have gone about their reveal. First, let's take a look at who EA and DICE chose to host the Battlefield 5 reveal. Mr. Trevor Noah is a comedian, writer, producer, and political commentator, is best known for his appearance on The Daily Show as host on Comedy Central. It's also important to note that in his description, he is in no way informed or a representative of the gaming community or industry. So the fact that EA and DICE chose him to host the reveal of Battlefield 5 over some of the prominent Battlefield community members such as JackFrags and Westy and whatnot raised a few eyebrows, and rightfully so, for obvious reasons such as them being way more experienced in the Battlefield franchise and their content being primarily based on Battlefield, as well as them being main pillars of the hardcore and casual community at the same time. It was a peculiar move on EA's side. I'm not even going to talk about Trevor's obvious inexperience in Battlefield and his cringy attempt to try to make people laugh at the reveal event during interviews with the developers and his other attempts with the audience.
I can't wait to just be that support class and just piling up the sandbags.
Right.
Like,
that's me.
Yeah,
they call me Sandbag Sam where I'm from. My name is not Sam, but they just went with it anyway.
Yeah, so
Tie that with the fact that EA announced that Battlefield 5 won't have a paid season pass, which was also a peculiar move coming from EA. Now you might ask, what does Trevor Noah have to do with Battlefield 5 not having a season pass? And the answer is, EA did not just simply exclude a paid season pass from Battlefield 5 for nothing. It came with a price, and that price being the attempt to mass appeal a game like Battlefield 5 by promoting inclusion, diversity over authenticity, realism, and historical accuracy, which has been the trademark of Battlefield games, as we all know. At least the ones that are based on big historical events, unlike Battlefield 4, for example, which is fictional. This mass appeal move by EA is their way of inviting everyone, whether you're into Battlefield or not, to buy their game. And as a result, they're able to compensate for the game's lack of a paid season pass by having everyone and their mother buy their game, as well as checking their equality checkbox for PR and telling everyone how progressive and inclusive EA and DICE are. Let me point out that those who buy the game because they personally feel like they're more personally represented in the game are not the ones who will keep the game alive in the long term. While some might stick to the game and eventually like it, any avid gamer can tell you that it isn't the casual gamers who pick it up to play the story once and play a few matches of multiplayer who keep the game alive and support the game in the long term. It's those who have been supporting the game long before the people who just got into it because they feel more represented and included in terms of in-game character models. If that's the reason why someone might get into Battlefield, or any other game for that matter, then I guarantee you that they won't really care for the game and its status after a month or two beyond the initial release. And that's not to say that the long-term supporters are asking for their own inclusion and diversity. These fans are asking for authenticity and immersion instead. So please don't try to twist this whole issue into being that the players are sexist or racist and whatnot. While it certainly may be the case for some players, given the massive numbers of players, there are bound to be some ill-willed players who are truly sexist and racist, and these people are rightfully called out and shunned for their bigoted prejudice. So don't conflate these people with those who are providing logical and appropriate reasoning for their upsets about the game. EA and DICE have taken a noticeably different direction in terms of the marketing strategy. It's clear that they realize that the game's reveal sets the tone of the game until it's released, and will highly determine the sales numbers accordingly. This new marketing direction being all about diversity and inclusion over authenticity, and historical accuracy, which interferes with immersion. What immersion, you ask? The immersion that's supposed to represent the theme of World War II, in which DICE openly announced that the game is representative, in fact, of World War II. The issue that most players have taken with this is this. Is this really supposed to reflect on the British soldiers of World War II? The player characters being in no way representative of the true historical theme of World War II, which what we've come to know Battlefield for. Historical immersion. Take a look at Battlefield 1, for example, and you'll know what I'm talking about. As I've said before, reveal trailers set the initial tone of the game, and this Michael Bay-like tone doesn't seem to be very authentic and original, but rather washed and forced into Battlefield 5. A game in which DICE announced that is about the biggest catastrophe humanity has ever witnessed, which the devs made very clear that World War II is what they're portraying. And in their own words, it's a modern and fresh take, whatever that is supposed to mean. And so I understand the sentiment that people might be upset that DICE said it's a World War II game, yet they chose to ignore the true setting of World War II. That setting being a gritty World War setting of death and disaster, and a reminder to mankind to not commit such a horrible calamity again. I can understand why this may come off as insulting to our history and the dead soldiers, including men and women, who partook in the war. While this whole controversy could have been avoided had the developers not insisted that the game is actually representative of World War II stories told through the eyes of those who participated in it, which suggests historical accuracy. But instead, they took on another route to representing the war. Or at least that's what we know so far, or what has been shown in the trailer. Some may have articulated their sentiments in a more raging manner, which could lead to have them deemed as racist, sexist by others or the opposing side for not wanting a woman on the battlefield. I don't think this is the right way to think on both sides. I believe that most of the criticizers of this game came from a perspective of what they've always known as standards for Battlefield, and for these standards to be broken for the rather shallow reason of diversity and inclusion is quite a bit of a slap in the face to genuine fans of the series. While I absolutely have no problem with women being on the battlefield, we all know that women were not on front lines battling against other men in the trenches. Why did DICE not choose to show the badass woman snipers of the Soviet Union instead? Instead, they've put a ginger-haired British woman whose hand is amputated, which anyone who is mildly knowledgeable of World War II knows is completely false. It is a known fact that all amputated soldiers were sent back home and not deployed in the war, despite their missing limbs. Of course, I'm not saying that there weren't women fighting. Of course, there were women fighting on the battlefield, especially in countries that were occupied by Nazi Germany and, as I just mentioned, the Soviet Union. And what about this soldier who's got a katana-like sword on his back? Is that also supposed to represent the British Army's weaponry? It doesn't take a historian to realize that the trailer was confusing, given how the devs explained that this will be not World War themed, but an accurate depiction of World War II. And so the confusion turned into an upset, and understandably so, when the devs' reasoning was to replace authenticity with inclusion and diversity, which doesn't help in making the game an immersive World War II experience. When the devs clearly stated that Battlefield 5 is going to tell real stories about World War II. This isn't my narrative, but it's the devs who are pushing this idea, which the trailer proved otherwise, which can lead to the idea that the devs might be trying to push a false narrative of World War II. or at least a purposeful misrepresentation. Hence, some people may have doubts that EA might be pushing an agenda that can possibly get the young minds to have a different take on World War II, which is another reason for people to be upset with the game's depiction of World War II. We don't want our kids to get into the game with such a wild representation of the war. Again, I reiterate, the devs are selling this as an accurate representation of World War II, which conflicts with what has been shown so far. Don't get me wrong though, I'm all for creative freedom, and it's their game, and the devs can do whatever they want with it. But when you're trying to represent not just any historical event, but World War II, you're expected to respect the narrative and not misrepresent it in such an over-the-top manner. One way for DICE to rectify this mess, in my opinion, is if they state that this isn't in fact an accurate portrayal of the war, but rather simply a World War II themed game, or by stating that the reveal trailer was only representative of purely the multiplayer aspect of the game, and in no way indicative of the so-called accurate realistic portrayal of the stories that took place in World War II, in which they claim to represent. It doesn't really matter to me in terms of multiplayer, whether you're playing as a man or a woman or a tranny or a kangaroo, it's multiplayer. I'm not going to look at the character before killing another player. Though I can understand the argument of people who also want an immersive experience in multiplayer and keep women where they're due in terms of regiments, like the Norwegian resistance or the Soviet Union or whatever other country who had women in their armies. We'll have to wait and see how DICE and EA handle this issue on their part. So far, not so good, I would say. I urge EA and DICE to listen to the voices of reason and rationale, rather than that of whiny kids who are jumping on the bandwagon of no women on the battlefield for the sake of it, because that's not even close to being the primary issue here. I personally am very interested to see how they handle the storyline of the Soviet snipers and how they go about depicting them, which I hope to be respectfully accurate and not as flippant as the characters shown in the trailer. Same for the 369th Regiment, the German and British, and all of the other armies and regiments who participated in the war. Shockingly enough, I'm not here to talk much about the gameplay, which will undoubtedly be solid given DICE's history with FPS development. And what we've heard about the gameplay changes so far sounds very promising, and so I urge you to watch JackFrags or Westy's videos, or whoever your favorite Battlefield content creator is, to learn about the latest gameplay changes. They look pretty good so far. Not all of it, but most of it. And finally, if you conflate my message with that of a woman hater or an alt-right or whatever political label these kids use these days, then know that you're being absurdly ridiculous, and that you haven't listened to a word I said by being too outraged and unable to understand the message behind this video, and instead thinking of how to provide a comeback, comment, article, or even video for that matter before actually understanding the stance that I'm taking, which is the same stance that many free-thinking and non-ideological fans are taking. I'm going to leave you guys with a bunch of videos, including a comparison between Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 by creator NukemDukem, which will show you the massive difference between the trailers and the tone that was set for both games at the time of their reveal. Another video by the duo, which offers a perspective of a woman on the matter, if you're interested. And a video regarding all the gameplay details revealed so far by JackFrags. And two more very, very well put together videos by Nox Cooperative, who has made two very interesting videos, which I'll be leaving in the description, in which he explains the political approach that EA has taken in terms of the reveal. I urge you to check them out. They're worth a watch. Thank you for listening, and I hope you get my point, whether you're on one side or the other, and have a good day.